Uh, Sorry, we have to wait for two of our trainers. They're running a little late, but they're going to join in a few minutes.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Daniel. We'll start in probably a minute or so. So hi everyone, welcome to the training session, the second training session in the Bridging Gaps course, which is a course where we discuss and equip students with knowledge on how to approach different communities. And this week we are joined by Dr. EDITH OGALO, um, Mr. Daniel Tobo, and Mr. John Chege, who's just about to join. So I think we can, I'll just introduce the two as we wait for him to join us. So Dr. Edith is a pediatrician at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, a technical advisor, pediatric and adolescent HIV program at AMPATH, and a researcher in HIV and adolescent medicine. And Daniel Otobo is a clinical medical student at Bingham University in Nigeria. He has supported and developed several projects and plans to educate teenagers and young adults on sexual education and contraception. He has spoken at various events on SRHR and MHM, like the Rai Culture Bonfire and Respect Intense, amongst others. He founded the Reproductive Education for Nigerian adolescents and teenagers also. So I think if I could just let Dr. Edith also unmute her mic and tell us more about herself and introduce herself. Dr. Edith.
Hi, everyone. I think if you're all students at the medical school, then we may be familiar with each other. I don't know what to say about myself, but I work at MTRH, Upendo Ward, where I do a routine clinical work, patient care. And then I also run the Rafiki Clinic, which we know is the adolescent clinic supported by MTRH, AMPATH, and Moi University. So, and then I also oversee the care of adolescents and children living with HIV within the 8 counties where AMPATH works. So this comes to about 10,000 adolescents living with HIV and about 3,000 children 14 years and below who are living with HIV, who I take care of. So it's a pleasure to join you today, and I hope that I'll have something to share that you may learn from.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edith, for that. Daniel, kindly introduce yourself and tell us which communities you've been able to work with. Daniel? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, he might be having some network issues. So we'll just wait for him to, let me just inform him.
Okay, hello, good afternoon. I'm Daniel Otobo from Nigeria. I'm basically a researcher in reproductive health, specifically on health and rights contraception and unsafe abortion. And this also takes me to the field of teenage pregnancies, rape, and gender-based violence. I founded the Reproductive Education for Nigerian Adolescents and Teenagers, RENATE, and I work with health NGOs here in Nigeria to help educate rural communities on reproductive health and also preach against gender-based violence. In gender-based violence here, we specifically we keep looking at physical gender-based violence. However, from time to time, we try to hear the complaints of those who go through the more depression causing violence, which is emotional-based violence and financial-based violence. Yeah, a lot of men do that to their ladies, and then we try to help them leave such abusive relationships or talk to the men to improve those relationships. I'm very happy to be on this medium to share my experience and also learn from those here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for that. So we can move to our first objective. So the first objective of this session is what is SRHR and gender-based violence, and why is it important to educate the community on them? So we'll start with Dr. Edith. Dr. Edith, can you hear me? Okay, I guess we can start with Daniel Otobo. Kindly take us through the first objective on what SRHR is and gender-based violence and the importance of educating it to the communities in which you have interacted with on the topic. Daniel Otobo, kindly take us through that. Okay. I don't know if Dr. Edith can hear me now. Hi, Doc.
Hello. I can't really hear your question clearly. That's what I was asking. Yeah, if you can bring your microphone closer to your mouth, please.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Yes.
So the question is, what is sexual and reproductive health rights and gender-based violence, and why is it important to educate the communities that you have interacted with on them?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now clearly. Thank you.
The first objective is what is SRHR and gender-based violence, and why is it important to educate the community on them?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so SRHR, acronym-wise, stands for Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights. However, I think it goes beyond just that. SRHR is ensuring a state of physical, mental, and emotional well-being of the reproductive health of both men and women, and not just the absence of disease or looking at someone getting abused. Now, in ensuring that the mental and emotional well-being are also fine, we have to make sure that these people don't go into depression from reproductive problems. And now looking at the physical aspects, this is where gender-based violence, mainly in Africa, comes in. So it's very important to ensure that the reproductive health of people are ensured, because it does not just serve as a means through which new generations are continued, through making offsprings. Africans were very good at producing new offsprings. But it also has to do essentially with a lady feeling, because most women are the ones that go through gender-based violence, and most SRHR pathologies are in relation to ladies. So it also has to do with these ladies feeling happy and comfortable about the fact that they are women. Now, a country that has very, very poor SRHR rights and advocacies and bills being passed, that country is going to have a lot of women wishing they were not born, or wishing they were born as men. And if everybody was born as a man, we know that won't be good. And SRHR also is very important, because the happiness of a woman in many ways contributes to the mental health of a child while it's growing up, because a happy mother will ensure a happy child. So in a nutshell, I feel SRHR is very important, because when we are making a woman happy and training this woman and ensuring her rights, we're also making sure our generations are happy. We're training our nation, and we're ensuring the rights of future nations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, for that. Dr. Edith?
Hi, sorry, network is a bit poor from my end too. So I'm supposed to talk about GBV, define GBV or something?
Yeah, define SRHR and gender-based violence, and why it is important to educate the community on them.
Okay, the definition I believe has been quite well described. So if I may talk about the violence a bit, is like a form of abuse or taking away of rights or wellness, which may be physical, it may be psychological, it may be emotional, it may be financial. So, and it is violence based on somebody's gender, because of their vulnerability based on their gender. And as Otobo has said, it's against women. So in many instances, when we talk about it, we are referring to the violence against women. But I believe we all know that men are equally at risk of violence because of their gender. So SRH again is, I think he has defined it quite well, the well-being or the healthiness in terms of the sexual and reproductive health, both male and female. And again, SRH is emotional, physical, yeah, so it's not just the physical health. And so why it is important? One, it takes away, if there's violence, for instance, or if there's poor SRH health amongst us in a certain gender, for instance, the females, then we end up in a community that has poor general health. So the health indicators for that community will go down. These health indicators include, let's say, under 5 mortality. In the presence of poor SRH, you'll have poor under 5 health indicators such as immunization, such as mortality, such as morbidity incidences. And the GBV can also lead to other conditions such as HIV. We know that HIV thrives very much in communities that have high GBV rates. Infections such as STIs, they can be very high because of poor SRH or GBV, where there's GBV. We also have other economic indicators in that community will go low. We know that where we have empowered, for instance, women, because mostly we talk about women, where we have empowered women, then we have better economic indicators being shown in those communities. So it's more than just the health being affected, but also other indicators being affected.
Thank you for that. So I was wondering, now that you have mentioned all this, are there like specific examples that you have seen in in the communities that you've interacted with, where you have seen the problem and the result of it. Dr. Edith?
Okay, so that question is a bit broad, but if I may talk about, because my area of work is largely with adolescent medicine, we see, like in Kenya and in most of Africa, the people at highest risk of getting HIV infections right now are the female adolescents. And the reason they are at high risk of HIV is because of the gender imbalance that exists in that age group. So when adolescent girls are in sexual relationships with the older men, then there's that power imbalance, and also because of age, but also there's the gender imbalance. And so they are at high risk of being exposed to HIV and at low risk of being able to take preventive measures. And then another example is female genital mutilation, which is a form of gender-based violence. We know that adolescent girls are at a high risk of female genital mutilation in those communities that practice it. And because of this, they end up with many other health indicators being affected. For instance, they end up with fistula. They end up with children who are born with birth asphyxia. They end up with losing their dignity, and in that way losing their ability to get married in the future, losing their ability to be economically empowered, and so they are mostly hidden in shame. They are not able to be productive in the community. So those are examples that I can think of like immediately, but there are several others.
Daniel, do you have any examples that you'd like to share? Okay. So the other trainer, Mr. John Chege, has joined us, and I will just quickly introduce him before he takes the same objective. So Mr. John Chege is a passionate social developer who works at the Gender Violence and Recovery Center in resource mobilization, program development, and implementation. So, Mr. Chege, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today. And could you kindly tell us more about yourself and the communities you've worked with? Hello, Mr. John Chege, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, hi.
Hi. Thank you. My name is John Chege. Like you've mentioned, I work for GVRC and also a long-time partner of Respect. And in our work, I think we've been able to reach different communities. Let's say actively in about 27 counties. Yeah, I think extensively the hard to reach areas, the underserved populations, and also the populations that are marginalized on issues of GBV and SRHR.
Thank you, Mr. Chege. So we have just that the other two trainers have already talked on the first objective, and I just want to hear what you have to say on what SRHR and gender-based violence is, and why it's important in your experience to educate the community on the topics.
Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Hello, kindly go on.
Yeah. Thank you. It is very, very important in the linkage between SRHR and GBV, approaching it all from a human rights angle or from a human rights perspective. And we think actually the two actually go together because it is an issue of maybe just advancing issues of rights and addressing issues of violence. So when it comes to issues of gender-based violence, of course, we know it's women and children who are mostly affected, but also men. So in our work, what we do is we try to reach in response and prevention, targeting everyone, but also trying to advance the issues of sexual reproductive health and rights, especially for the young people. And sometimes when GBV happens, or let's say, for example, when women and girls are not able to bargain for safer practices, including access to issues like contraceptives, it is against, it is actually a violation of their rights. And sometimes in a relationship like that, you find that the linkage between abuse of power really comes out, really plays out when you're talking about power, GBV, and also issues of SRHR. So mostly nowadays what we do is, in as much as we talk about how to address issues of GBV, we are also trying to ensure that we are bringing everyone on board, including issues of empowering girls on issues of bodily autonomy, access to things like contraceptives, bringing together the marginalized groups who also suffer violence and sometimes may not get the services that they require. So we work with groups like LGBTIQ groups. We work with, we're also addressing issues of people with disability, so that in as much as we talk about ending violence, then we're increasing access to those basic services and commodities.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Chege. We can move on to the second objective. And also, guys, if anyone has any questions, kindly ask them in the chat box, and we'll come to them at another time. So the second objective is, what has your experience been in teaching on the two topics, and especially in communities where they're considered taboo?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think from our own experience, it's different from place to place, and also differs according to the group that we are targeting. For example, in most urban places like Nairobi, Nakuru, it isn't very difficult to enter and start having these discussions. We're also just trying, especially when you're working with young people, is how best we can make the services friendly. But in some areas, you find that there is a bit of, we've experienced a bit of maybe resistance that has led us to replanning our engagement when it comes to how we engage those communities, especially these ones in arid areas, Northeast and West Pokot. You find that we have a lot of barriers, first of all, that we need to break before we say that we did something meaningful or successful. So the experience has been a bit mixed and different from place to place. And most of the time, we find that it is good when these activities for GBV and SRHR, first of all, we get the buy-in of all the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers, in this sense, is people who really call the shots, especially in those other areas that are very heavy on issues of culture. So our first entry has always been trying to gain their support as much as possible, making them understand, so that we can roll out some of these activities, and also maintaining the sensitivity when it comes to people's cultures. And with the time, because it's not a one-off, it's a process. And with the time, some of these discussions are very difficult to have, but because of consistency and repeating, communicating the same message over and over, And also the way we normally start is we have different sessions for particular groups. For example, we have how we have approached it is we've done things specifically for girls, things specifically for boys, things specifically for women. Then at some point now we start blending and just ensuring that we have empowered the community champions who are the resources that remain at the community level. So the experience has been a bit different, but with the time we've learned that it works once we empower them as much as possible to be their own vehicles to carry out the awareness and also referrals and issues of linkages, and also just ensuring that they're advocating to receive these services from their public health facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chege, for that. Let's hear what Dr. Edith has to say.
I think we have had a similar experience. It kind of depends from place to place, but the approach is the same as what has been described by the presenter, Mr. Chege, I think. Whenever we want to go to a community to talk about gender-based violence, we have to get the community entry people to buy in. And sometimes, like, for instance, we have these activities in Bungoma and then in Busia and then in Trans Nzoia in Kenya. And so we have to have like focus group discussions with these key stakeholders to identify some key themes, because the issues are different from community, the beliefs are different from community to community. So after you've had the community entry by the stakeholders at the county level, this can be like the county, for the health, Ministry of Health, this is the county director and then the CEC. And then of course you have to involve somebody from the Ministry of Gender and Social Services. So that's how we usually approach either them or their representatives. And then we have a focus discussions with some key people. And these focus group discussions help us to understand that community, but also helps them to understand what it is that we want to do in that particular community. Then after having the focus group discussions with key people, then we go to specific populations that we want to work with. For instance, if you want to work with men, then we get a few men to sit down and help us understand their view of the whole issue. And then we work with then adolescents, and then we work with for instance, religious leaders if we feel like there's a barrier from religious leaders. So the entry is kind of the same as been described before. But it's important that when you're going to a community to handle these issues, that you don't go there with prejudices. You might think that something is obviously off, but their understanding is different. And if their understanding is different and it looks like you are attacking their ways of doing things, then they block from the whole project. So you understand their way of understanding the whole issue, and then you make them, they kind of find a way of letting them see the problem for themselves without you having to say that this is a problem. They may be able to tell, yes, I think this is wrong. I think it's wrong for women to, for instance, have to raise children by themselves, or to have to raise children, but at the same time be the ones to look for food and stuff like. So their solutions sometimes are with that community. And it's as you go in, if it's not your community, if it's your community, it's different. If it's not your community, you are kind of like a facilitator rather than a solution to the issue.
Okay, thank you, Doc, for that. So I have a question that has come up on how to understand the different communities and how to make them see the problem for themselves. Could you just like expand on that slightly with a clear example of how you would approach a certain community on it?
Okay. Let's talk of a community where, and it's in many communities in Kenya, beating a woman is a sign of love, you know. or a sign of discipline, so that women are just the way we even disciplining children, we should not discipline them by physically, by slapping or something, but we do that all the time. So doing that to women in many communities by their husbands is also acceptable. And so you can sit with men in a discussion, and you ask them to explain why they do it. They'll tell you it's a sign of discipline, women misbehave, or sometimes I want to show my power, how will I be the head of the household? And then you ask things like, so when you do that, how does the woman feel? Many of them have never thought of what the woman feels. Then they'll begin to feel like, yes, she actually feels the physical pain. And maybe they'll be able to think through, she actually gets the emotional pain also. So by them reflecting on what they're trying to communicate might be different from what the woman is feeling from that activity. And maybe they've never given it a thought to see that actually this woman feels this way. Sometimes you might be able to ask, what about if you hit her and her teeth come out? What happens out of that? Then they'll be able to think through. Or if she's pregnant and you kick her, what are the things that might happen? Then they'll be able to think through, yes, she might lose the pregnancy, she might bleed, she might be admitted for a few days. So just giving them an opportunity to think through and realize the consequences of the actions, and helping them understand what are better ways of making a woman respect you, or what are the ways that you could do to show you're the head of the household, that are not physical, or that are not verbally abusive. And they think through the solutions together. And then you give them maybe ways of going to practice that at home, or practicing amongst themselves for some time. And of course, nothing is ever quick fix, just like Mr. Chege said, and even I think Mr. Otaru said, nothing is a quick fix. Many times this has to be done over and over and over again. But it's important to get the key people who, once they are convinced about it, then even in your absence, that message continues. So it's not like you're going and then you deal with one person and you come out. If you deal with chiefs, for instance, there are times that we just deal with chiefs, and we tell chiefs that this is going on in your community and we want you to help us. And so they talk about it in the barazas. And even when you come out, they are able to continue with it. If you talk to chiefs and then you go to pastors and then you go to maybe head teachers or something, different stakeholders, then you saturate at least you reach a threshold in the community that is convinced. And so even when you pull out, the hope is that slowly some practices can change.
Okay, thank you, Doc, for that clarification. Daniel Otobo, Mr. Daniel Otobo, kindly take us through that, share your experience on that, on sexual and reproductive health rights.
Thank you so much. If I heard you correctly, you said I share on the challenges in advocating for SRHR and GBV in my community and Nigeria, yes?
Yeah, your experience.
Oh, okay. Okay, now this will be very eventful. My experience, I would start from the beginning. It starts from a very, very churchy setting. So your experience initially, even talking about sexual reproductive, you don't even have to complete the health and right. Just the sex alone is already like a challenge in religious settings. And from my few times I've spent in Kenya, I feel it's the same thing. Religions don't usually support a lot of sexual talks. So first of all, I had to understand the religious norms and laws guiding reproduction and sex of the other most common religion in Nigeria, which is Islam. Getting around Christianity was not that easy, but we got around it. Currently I'm in a Christian university, so there are some things I don't even say in the university. So like Dr. Ogalo said, when you meet people and you're speaking about something concerning their religion or culture, they take it as if you're attacking them. So you even find it very hard to even begin the conversation. My experience so far with Christianity, it's easier when you speak to the religious leaders. Okay. With Christianity, it's easier when you speak with the religious leaders. And when you speak with them, you need to be able to understand what is it that they don't like about sexual reproductive health. And then you have to be able to answer their queries and challenges to the best of your ability. Then you will now be able to preach to their congregation. And then from the perspective of their congregation, you'll be able to know what challenges they have. That's how we've been approaching it so far. And then there was a recent research in Nigeria, which we implemented, that showed public health. There is a research that says, public health, mental health, that showed that the problem of mental health in Nigeria was when you go to religious settings to talk about it, a lot of people take it as demonic possessions. So when the researchers spoke to the religious leaders, the religious leaders were able to see things from their perspective. And when they were now speaking to the congregation, the questions the congregation members asked in relation to spirituality were now answered by these religious leaders. They'll be like, oh, but didn't the Bible say this? Didn't the Quran say this? That's in terms of religion now. In terms of culture, it's not easy. Oh my God. Now, in terms of culture, Nigeria is a conglomeration of different countries. We have about 726 different tribes. Let's not even count the languages. But we have three main cultures in Nigeria. We have the Hausas, we have the Igbos, we have the Yorubas. The Hausas are mainly in northern Nigeria. The Igbos are the east, the Yorubas are mainly in the west. The Igbos are mostly Christians. So if you are able to walk through Christianity, you've gotten the Igbos, and you're able to work with money, you've also gotten the Igbos. Now, the Hausas are mainly in northern Nigeria. If you are Muslim and you speak Hausa, you've gotten them. They are Muslims, and they are. If you are a Muslim and you speak Hausa, it's easier for you to get to them. Okay, I think the point I'm trying to make is when I wanted to do advocacy in northern Nigeria, because that's where most of my activities have been focused on, I started by, my initial efforts were useless. They didn't yield fruit. So I now found out that they were fellow Muslim ladies. They call themselves Muslima. I found out they were fellow Muslim ladies that were carrying out minute advocacies within their universities, within their communities. So I was able to get a network of those Muslimas, and then they now educated me more on things to say and things not to say, what to do and what not to do in order to meet these targets. So one of them, luckily for me, her dad is a religious leader in Islam, an imam, and he just basically told me that Islam does not forbid people learning what is right, what is wrong. Islam does not promote beating or maltreating of women. And the quotation that people usually quote, that women are evil, that no, that's not what Islam preaches, that a lot of people misinterpret that statement. And then lastly, he now said, and the fact that there's new knowledge available to promote the rights and health of a person, that knowledge is meant to be attained. Because even the surah preaches that they should search for wisdom, they should search for knowledge, that this life is basically a life for the search for knowledge. So when I got this, I was now able to structure my messages better. I structured it based on, this is new available knowledge, because most of my preachings were mainly in pregnancy prevention, the maternal rights, and calm down with the violence, please. So when I'm speaking of contraception, I'm like, we're not committing a sin. We're just trying to prevent, because it's not every time you meet with your wife that you intend a child to come out. A lot of women, after their third or fourth children, the others were not planned. So, and when they want to use contraception, their husbands who don't know about contraception would not support. So in this field also, we also tried to educate the men, because CME for men, that comprehensive sexual education for men, yielded most of the results we wanted actually. So in educating the men, we're able to reduce things like violence, we're able to improve contraceptive uptake, because our demography of health survey shows that the states in northern Nigeria with the most educated men only have about 55.5% of men educated, which was poor. So we now had to focus on just sexual education. We're not coming to teach them physics, chemistry. We just want to teach them things to make the life of their women better. And we now tell them, oh, this is new knowledge. It's not against your religion, it's just new knowledge. It's just, if you have your first child now, you can have your first child in the next 2 days and things like that. Then for men who really didn't want their daughters or wives to get education, and those who maltreated their daughters who wanted to get education, we've not really made a lot of progress there actually, because we were able to we're trying to actually make them understand that if your daughter gets an education, when next a relation of yours is in the hospital, if she's a doctor, she'll be treated by a female doctor. Because surprisingly, in this same region of Nigeria, you find out that they don't send their female children to school, but yet when they come to the hospital, especially in obstetrics and gynecology cases, they will request female doctors to see their daughters, to see their wives, and see their female relatives. And then this even happened 2 months ago. One of the doctors asked the man, do you have a daughter? And the man said yes. And then she asked him, where is your daughter? And I said, she's helping her mother sell things. And how old is your daughter? The daughter was 16 years. And long story short, she has never been to a classroom before. And yet he was there with another of his daughter, and he specifically requested a female doctor to see his daughter. And she told him straightforward, I'm going to treat your daughter and she's going to come for follow-up. When she's coming for the second follow-up, if she's not yet enrolled in a school, I'm not going to see your child again. Because if everybody treated their daughters the way you did, I wouldn't have been educated today. So I feel circumstances at times help men get educated, help people get educated. So we are always there at times in the hospital, especially in this region where they have complications. You've heard of vaginovascular fistula, VVF. Vaginal fistula is a common complication here in northern Nigeria, and it's very common among people who get pregnant at 13, very early pregnancies, and that is very prevalent here in northern Nigeria. So when we see someone bring his wife, we'll try and we'll not stop at the wife, we'll try and educate him. Don't allow your daughter get married too early. Don't allow your daughter get maltreated. What's happening to your wife now is going to be the complication if you allow your daughter go through the same turmoils. And then we also try to open mental health group chats, but so far so good. What we've been able to achieve, girlfriends complaining that their boyfriends don't give them money, don't chat with them, don't reply their messages. However, we've had 1 or 2 very important complaints of serious maltreating, scars and the rest. I have a colleague of mine in Lagos, Wilson. He had to go and report to the police command to help save a girl from a very, very violent boyfriend. So we've been using the social media, we've been using meeting them at their vulnerable position, because they say the only 2 times people really talk to God is when they are in the hospital and when they are in the law court. So when they are in the hospital, we try to meet them at their vulnerable point and interact with them and get them to understand. When they are doing their Thanksgiving that they survived, they'll remember what we're trying to preach to them. And our challenges with religion has not improved, but we've discovered a way around it. So we've made about 0.2% progress. And trust me, that's very, very important progress. Because religion is a very strong thing. And in terms of culture, there are some people that are unshaken. There's nothing we would do. In fact, today there was a news report that the headline was, new mother struggling to pay 53,000 naira head bill. And when I read through the health news, I saw it was a teenager, a 14-year-old girl that was raped. And when she got pregnant, she was abandoned in the hospital and she gave birth through CS. They waived the CS bill, but the cafeteria that has been feeding her told her to pay the 53,000 naira food money. And I looked at the headline and I looked at the content of the news and I'm like, oh my God. And then I now read around what is prevalent in that area. And teenage pregnancy was a common thing there that it's not even meant to be reported on news anymore. So you see, we still have a lot of cultures to go through. So my challenge is we don't have enough hands. We don't have enough hands to promote our agenda. We don't have enough understanding of the diverse cultures in Nigeria, because one thing I know a lot of them had in common was teenage pregnancy. Before our colonization, it was very common. I'm sure that is also prevalent in the rest of Africa. So, and we have so many tribes in Nigeria. So our problem is hands-on. We don't have so much hands-on. Platforms, we don't have so much platforms. Most of the medical platforms on Nigeria used to push political agendas down from the students to the residents to the consultants, all of them want money. It's used to push political agendas. So even the platform willing to help us promote our Nigerian agenda, you'll find out that they are in Kenya, they are in South Africa, they are in Ghana, and we're pushing for a Nigerian agenda. We're doing a program on health in Nigeria, and you see these other countries helping us put it. So we don't have hands-on, we don't have platform, we don't have sufficient understanding of the dynamic tribes in Nigeria. But as far as religion is concerned, we were able to get that right. Meet the religious leaders, get them to understand it, so that when you talk to the congregation, if you talk to the congregation members and leave, they will come back and ask their religious leaders, oh, see what this doctor said. And religious leaders can say, don't mind them, they're anti-Christ or they're anti-Islam. But if the religious leaders understand your perspective, when your advocacy is done and you are gone, when they come to meet these religious leaders, then the religious leader is able to say, oh, he is preaching from this perspective. First Joshua chapter 8, where they say, meditate on the books of knowledge, do not allow it leave your hands. And Hosea chapter 3, verse 6, where they say that my people perish for the lack of knowledge. They are giving you new knowledge so that you stay alive. So hold on to that knowledge. Or he's speaking about Surah 135, that basically speaks about this life being a chase for knowledge. You see, the religious leaders are able to paint it in a way that they accept it. So that has been my experience so far. And I think the first solution is getting more hands-on, then based on the dynamic tribes of the members of the committee and the associations and those in the advocacy, they can also help us reach their personal communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for that extensive sharing. So we'll move on to the next objective, which is what challenges have you faced in educating the community on these issues? And we'll begin with Mr. John Chege.
Hello, Sherry.
Hello, we can hear you.
I seem to have lost sound.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
don't know. Seem to have lost sound.
Hello, we can hear. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear now.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're moving on to the third objective, which is what challenges have you faced in educating the communities on these issues?
Challenges.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think in light of the work that we'll be doing, I think the biggest challenge sometimes has been, not enough support, especially maybe from the government. You find that priorities, probably we have a lot of issues that need to be prioritized, but again you find that we don't have the supportive framework. For example, GBV is very expensive to based violence. As you know, we try do whatever with devolution, and maybe a few health facilities also starting to offer those services, maybe having a youth friendly challenge has been now allocation of resources to support this, because if you remove the donor funding that is there, then a lot of things may actually collapse. And you see, these are very sensitive cases that we deal with, especially when it comes to. So I think the biggest challenge has always been trying to ensure that there are allocated enough resources for response and also for prevention across GBV and sexual reproductive health issues. Then another challenge that we do have is, I think, what has already been described in details. Sometimes, or in most cases, you find that we have these issues, barriers created by our religious beliefs, and also some of our cultural practices that actually even until now you find that dealing with, like FGM, which really takes a toll on a lot of hard work that has already been done or put in place. Then again, of course, you find that there are also issues of challenges, especially in those other areas. Immediately a girl undergoes FGM, then it's like rubber stamp. She's now ready for marriage and family, and is still a child. So I think those are some of the challenges that keep taking us back. And again, over dependence on on saying that it's development partners who should keep doing this work. You find that a program may run for 3-5 years, but after that, again, you find that the momentum has really gone low. So I think those are some of the challenges that probably may not have been mentioned, but now we do have seeing them. And like also currently, one of the challenges that we are having is these cases. They have really increased. Really increased right now during COVID, and we are also seeing ourselves at our facilities. The numbers are really high. There's a lot of abuse going on right now, and since the economy took a hit from COVID-19, there are issues of lockdowns, curfews. It was again not possible even for us to do both prevention work and also response work. It was a bit of a challenge, but we are trying how we can to ensure that we continue trying to make the services as available. And then now, and lastly, one of the things that we know is always a challenge is we are also heading again. I don't know why every election year we find that these cases keep increasing. We saw the same in 2017. We saw the same in 2013. And we are hoping that 2022 we will not again, we will not lose all the gains that we've already done. But anytime there is that instability, we normally have a challenge of having increased, these cases really do increase. Yeah, I think those are some of the challenges that I would say in my experience that we've come across.
Okay. And also, how would you advise students to approach this? And
Yeah.
how would you advise children to solve this if they're solvable? Like, what solutions do you think that students can use as they approach the community and the challenges that you have experienced?
Oh, okay. I think one of the things that is very key, even for students when they are going to do this work, is very important to to develop the package together with the communities that you are targeting. So I think from the word go, they should be able to ensure that it has all the right stakeholders, including the people that they want to reach, so that they also, every area is different, probably craft messages together with the people, so that it is not just a message that was done by students, but it has the participation of everyone, and ensuring that they really participate in the whole project. So that is one of the things that I think is very important to do that. Then for students, I think it's also easier. Now, a lot of things have become easier because of technology. I think there's a big opportunity that can work because of they're able to use technology in a good way. So I believe that is one of the things that they can be able to expand. And the goodness is they can reach out to as many people as possible. And then also very important also maybe for students when they're going to work in some of these communities is nothing is cast on stone. It's important that the way they had planned to do something, after some time, maybe a year or 6 months or 1 year, they can. It's always important again to sit down and check if there is some things that have changed, and probably you need to adapt to new ways of doing some of these things. They do this with a lot of openness in terms of learning, so that they can collect as much learning as possible, and just keep adapting, because and the issues that we keep seeing are different from time to time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chege, for that. Daktari, kindly let's share the challenges that you experienced.
Yeah, I think Chege has said quite important points in terms of the challenges. Some of the other challenges include like barriers from the healthcare system itself. For instance, you'll find that you're convincing, for instance, adolescent girls to take up contraception, but then the healthcare workers themselves are not comfortable providing the service. So it makes the process a bit expensive, because then you have to start by educating not only the community and the adolescents themselves, but also educating the healthcare workers who you will be referring these cases to. We also have lack of laws that support SRH for adolescents. So, for instance, recently we saw in Kenya the reproductive health bill saying that adolescents have to get consent for family planning from their parents, and they also have to get consent to take up services like condoms, services like PrEP. How does your parent consent for you to get these services? So lack of laws that can support the work is a big challenge. And then we have challenges of lack of supplies that can help you meet your objectives. You'll go to a school as students, you talk to adolescents about taking up family planning or taking up condoms, then they come to the health facilities and these things are not there. So it just beats the purpose of the whole process. So lack of commodities and other supplies that can help you meet your objectives can be quite something. The issue of funds is a big one, because most of these activities are donor dependent, and so it looks like an agenda of donors. It looks like donors have a hidden agenda. So when you're talking to communities, sometimes they're like, no, these people want us to take up our children to take up family planning. They want to spoil our children. But if these funds were government driven, then there would be a little bit of more trust on the agenda of these activities. So that lack of support from mainstream government is an issue also.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edith, for that. Do you have any solutions that students can use when approaching the community on the problems that you have just stated?
So if students want to do this kind of activities, you want to tell adolescents, for instance, report gender, if you undergo some violence, report it. You have to prepare the receiving staff or facilities for the same, so that you're not just doing this and then when they go there, those people are even more harsh than the violators. So you have to make sure your approach is holistic, not just one way. If you are going to tell them, go and pick up condoms, then you go to the facility and you say, you know, we are going to be talking to adolescents to get condoms here. Would you please avail the services? If they are going to be, you are going to be telling them, get screened for depression or anxiety or something, there needs to be a psychological counselor willing to give that service. Otherwise, you create a lot of hope among the adolescents, and then they get demoralized when they reach there, and the people are very unfriendly. It's also important that, especially if you're students, that just don't go in as students, get some supervisor or somebody who can walk you through, because you're going to get a lot of there's a lot of negativity around this subject, and sometimes because you're also just students, you're also young, people just say these are just young people with a lot of energy, they don't know what they're doing. So if you have somebody like a chaperone, it might help you to walk through some of the difficulties that you have.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edith, for that. So, Mr. Daniel Otobo, kindly take us through Objective 3.
I'm sorry, please, I didn't hear you properly.
Oh, sorry. Kindly tell us what the challenges you faced. I know you have already mentioned a few, but if you have any other, and how other solutions that we can use when approaching the community.
Yeah, when it comes to global health issues, irrespective of the arm of global health, in this situation, we're looking at the SRHR of the UHC program. So that's the Sexual Global Health Program. I feel research is everything. The if each region, each community, and like in your country, each county, the medical students there can do a research as to what works for that region, I think it will go a long way if there is a general journal or a book that has how to actually go through each county. There was something Dr. Edith said that got to me, and what she said was each county has different cultures. Each county has different county chiefs. It's almost the same thing with Nigeria, just that here each state has about 30 different cultures under it. So, but you find each state, at least they have something in common. So by the time we find this journal, so when new generations want to go for advocacy, they don't have to start from scratch. They just need to know in this county, the chiefs are usually open to hearing, so you move to the chiefs. Or in this county or in this state, they are so religious, so you go to the imams. Or in this different state or in this county or in this community, they respect their family, the will of their husbands more than the imams or the chiefs. And it's not just, I heard her also say that a lot of men and a lot of, I heard her say a lot of men believe beating their wives to showing their wives love. In 2018, or was it 17, a Nigerian lady, I pray she's still alive, made a video, a young teenager like me and you, I say teenager, sorry, a young adult like you and I, made a video saying, ladies, listen to me. If your boyfriend does not beat you, if your husband does not beat you, he doesn't love you. And I was watching it, I'm like, what? And she went on and went on, and she said, he's only if he's able to express his anger properly that he can't hold himself. And I just said, I hope she was joking. And then I looked at the comments, and I saw a lot of ladies saying, yes, so I tried to tell my friends, their own is saying your boyfriend is wicked, your boyfriend is. So I'm now beginning to understand that we've gotten to a point in life that a lot of girls have grown up seeing their dads maltreat their mothers to the point that they think that that's the physiological norm of they being women. They should be beaten by men. They see men beat their mothers and their fathers now. They say, oh, my dear wife, my loving wife, when she cooks food with plenty meat or things like that. That is not love. That's just adverse wickedness. So there are some people who is whatever the man in the house says that matters. So we need to know this tribe, this religion, what works for it. If this works for you, please document it down. In 2019, the first quarter of the Nigerian Journal of Medicine by the resident doctors here, the psychiatry researchers, residents, were able to clearly show us that in a community, they found one half of the community respected religion more, the other half respected culture more. So they were able to tell us this is what worked in the religion perspective, and this was what worked in the cultural perspective. With that document, if I'm ever to go to that tribe, that community to do a research, I think it will now be my fault if I had not read up on what works for them. So I think we medics, when we succeed, we shouldn't just sing about the praise. We should make a published documentation, a letter to the editor in reputable, peer-reviewed international journals. What works, even national journals, because I think advocacy, in as much as the global and international chase, the achievements are at local levels, are at national levels. So I feel what we can do is for each time we fail, we can document our numerous failures, yes, but the success is very important. Not just success in surgeries, but success in advocacy, and to go a long way to help future generations. Isaac Newton will say, I stand tall today because I stand on the shoulders of giants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otobo, for that. Just a kind reminder that if anyone has a question on the topics, kindly just type it up in the chat box and we will get to them. And so for the next one, we'll tackle how, if we could kindly give us step by step a way of how we should approach communities as students on the topics. We'll start with John Chege, Mr. John Chege. Okay, I think he has some network issues. So, Dr. Edith, how would you advise students to approach the communities on the above topics and how to start?
I think students who want to do this, they need to first know very well what is it that they want to do in that community. Are you going in to just understand? Are you going in to intervene? Are you going in for research? So research is different from where you're just going there to intervene. So you need to write down exactly what it is that you want to do in that community regarding SRH or GBV or both. And don't make it too wide because you won't meet your objective. Make it as narrow and as achievable and as smart as possible. And then what does it take in terms of budget-wise? Do you have the money to meet the objectives of what you want to do? Do you have the time? How long do you intend to be in that community? And then what is it that, who is it that you need to meet when you're going there? So you need to list the people that you need to meet, the gatekeepers, who are they? And then intervene, the people you want to intervene on, or the people you want to ask questions on, who are they? You need to clearly write them down. For instance, if it is research, then what are the other research requirements that you need? You need an ethical review, for instance. You may need NACOSTI, which is the county, the National Research Reviewing Body. Rather, the IREC is regional. So you need, basically what is it that the documents you require before you get there? And then who is the person who is going to do the community entry among you? You choose that person. And then from there, depending on who it is you want to meet, get a meeting with the gatekeeper, the real gatekeeper, because if you go to the community, if you don't follow protocol, it won't work. So who is it who is the biggest? And then who is it who is next? And who is it who is next until you reach your target population? Many times, the next top, you can meet them in one meeting, and so that you don't have to go to one person's office and then another one. Many times you are able to get them in one meeting and you deal with them at once before you now reach there. If you're going to a village, then the lower level people will be now the village elders there. But before you even go to a certain village, you'll have met the county people, the sub-county, maybe the community entry person, and then the village person. So once you have identified all the levels that the people you need to meet and what it is that you want to tell them, of course, when you are doing that, you are delegating who is doing it, when are they doing it, how will you know they've done it until you reach, then you can now reach the community persons or whoever it is that you are targeting to reach. Sometimes it's easier. It can be complicated like that, depending what it is you're doing, or it can be easier, like where you just want to meet, let's say, informally students in the nursing training college, maybe. If you are going, let's say, to the nursing training college, you may not need to go to the county people. You can just go to the principal of the nursing school, talk to the principal of the nursing school, and you need to describe exactly what are you going to tell this person, because you need their buy-in. You don't want to waste time going there and they're kicking you out and then you're scheduling another meeting. So you know what it is that you want to discuss in that meeting. And you want to, what is the outcome? What is it that you want out of that meeting? Maybe you want a yes, or you want a letter of support. What is it that you want? And then from there now you can proceed with your protocol, the activities that you have arranged in your protocol based on your time and your resources and all that. So it's very important that I think the planning should take quite a chunk of what it is that you're doing. If you don't plan well, you'll go through all these things. At the end of, let's say it's a 1-year thing, you come out and you realize, oh, we didn't even have the proper tools. We didn't try to ask the right questions. We didn't get the right demographics. So you might need to pilot it first, see, is it bringing out the things that you want, so that you don't go wasting your resources and your time just to discover at the end of the day, whatever it is that you have, or you went to intervene and you never really managed to intervene. So I think that's my view of what you could do.
Okay, thank you, Doc, for that. Let's hear from John Chege on how we should approach the communities on the subject, the topic.
Hello?
Hello? Sorry,
Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Chege, can you hear me?
You can hear me? Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, yes, you can. Just go on, we can hear you. Hello? Okay. Maybe we can start with Daniel Otobo, and then we'll come back to Mr. Chege.
Pas de problème. S'il vous plaît, standing on existing
Maybe
protocols.
can you just supposed to share? Yeah, you can you refresh? Hello?
Hello, sorry, can you hear me? Mr. Chege, can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Please, a bit of challenge on network.
Oh, that's fine. So the question was how should we approach communities on the topics? Like what
Hello?
students? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So, kindly.
Oh,
I keep losing you.
The question was, how should we as students approach the community on subjects? How would you advise students to, where would you advise students to start from? Hello, did you get
advice to what Dr. said?
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. We can hear you. Just go on.
Hello?
We can hear you. Please go on.
Hello? Okay, thank you. Now, I think that very, very important is before any work is done, it's very important that
Sorry, I think we lost you, Mr. Chege. Okay.
It's a very, very important people.
Sorry, I think we lost
to bring on board.
Part.
First,
okay. Sorry for that. Let's Mr. Chege, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Bit of challenge kidogo na network. Yeah, now like I was saying, it's very important that so identifying who the influencers are. Important. Then number two is to ensure that for this thing to work, for the engagement that you want to do participate in everything, and when also.
Hello, Mr. Chege, can you hear me? Okay, I think we lost him again. Okay, so I think maybe we can, Daniel Otobo can go first.
Ensure that you have a
Okay. Otobo, please, Mr. Otobo, kindly go ahead.
Okay. Standing on existing protocols, what can we do as students? There are three major things we can do. We can be the bridge, we can be the messengers, and we can be the recipients of this message. Being the messengers, that's being the source of the message, From our knowledge of medicine, we can try to develop ways to refine this knowledge and at least make it simplified enough for the common man. Because most of these social pathologies we are talking about are not very, very, very prevalent in the urban setting. Being the medium, that's the bridge, we can be the gap between the needed knowledge and the people that need it. And we can do this not only by social media and Zoom advocacies, but by going to these communities, these localities, and these counties that these pathologies are mostly prevalent in, gender-based violence and abuse of reproductive health rights, and enlighten them about it. By being the medium that receives this knowledge, we can, in our own family, start effecting this change that we've already heard. You can't tell me, and I can't tell you, that there is no doctor, even professors, that beat up their wives. You can't tell me, and I can't tell you, that there are no doctors that abuse the reproductive health rights of their daughters and their wives. So it's even clear that being a medic is not even a tangible excuse. As a few hours ago, okay, I think I communicated it that I was going to be 10 minutes late. I was returning from a regional northern convention where I spoke on child marriage. And you would be surprised that there were doctors who believed that marrying a girl out at 13 years of age was not child marriage. And they defended it with everything they had. I almost lost my temper. I mean, I couldn't even believe it. These were doctors. These were not medical students. These were doctors. What will I now do in the situation of a medical student? So we ourselves can be recipients of this knowledge. We can be the gap that be, connecting the needed knowledge to the needed people, and we can be the source of refined knowledge. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Otobo, for that. Mr. Chege, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Kindly go on how.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Hello, we can hear you. Kindly go on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think much has already been said in terms of how best they can be able to approach this. And I think it's also very, very important that now between this and how accessible those services are. I think it's very, very important that no one is left behind when students want to go and do these activities. I think it's also very important that the awareness or the campaign is now at a really heightened level. Number one, they should ensure that whatever strategy they are going to work on should be one that empowers the communities to be able to advocate and also ask or demand for these services, and also demand that actually at health facility level that they can actually get the required services that they need. And also, I think very, very important is there are different things that work differently depending on where they are. It's very important, I think, that they also identify people who will, run like champions or the faces of the heightened awareness that they want to undertake, so that number one, they really, really build on those structures that are available in those communities. For example, it is very important to first of all understand what structures are there. For example, if you are going, let's say, in a certain county, it's very important that you start with the highest senior leadership teams of the county. They understand what you're doing. Then you can get to know, like, for example, the existing structures that are there, so that you don't introduce something new. You just use something that is already there. For example, you might go up to ward admins, you may go up to community health volunteers. These are some of the people that are already in existence and will give you a boost when you want to be able to deliver on issues of GBV and the SRHR. And remember that for issues of prevention at the grassroots level. So I think to do and see how you can use what is already in existence. That one will really help. And very, very important also is to ensure that I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chege, for that. We will now move on to the last objective, which is what do you think lacks in the community in terms of information, and what do you think should be emphasized to them in the of topics? I think we can start with Mr. Chege for this.
Okay, thank you. I think what is for us in our own experience is we are just not to that. We are not up to that level that we can have a very candid discussion. So I think what is really lacking is people are still afraid, especially parents. You've seen what has happened in the country because of teenage pregnancies that we've just experienced. I think now it's very important that we really have candid discussions. What is lacking is there is, according to me, I feel there is a missing link when it comes to issues of how we are parenting now. There's a problem with parenting, and that is why we are getting in a lot of trouble. So I think it's very important that co-creation around responsibilities and also about proper parenting. I think that is something that we should be given more platform for people to engage even deeply, because and then second one is how best can we help our children. I think it's very important. What is missing right now is people understand sex differently. Our head under the sand when it is true that most are engaging in sexual activities without knowing. So it's very important that we see how best they can also be helped, the children themselves, so that they can be supported to make correct decisions. That whole discussion around issues of sex should be addressed. The number two is also that most of our girls, especially young girls, right now, most of our girls are around right now is that you find it is as a result of violence or abuse. Most of them is defilement cases. and that is why you see that they keep quiet for a long time. So we also need to strengthen the reporting. We also need to strengthen the reporting of how these cases of GBV can be reported and how these children can be supported as quickly as possible, because you find that a lot of these defilements. So I think those are.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chege, for that. Well, you mentioned a problem with parenting, and what exactly do you think should be addressed on the problem with parenting?
I was saying, but that one. I think now we need to have that very candid discussion in terms of. I don't think our parents are engaging or talking to children as much as possible. A lot is in roofs, and we are not able to tell. So the problem I was addressing is number one. Maybe the parents need a different kind of training or a different kind of discussion. And then they also need to talk more. They also need they should be having with their children. These discussions are brought on the table without hiding, so that some of these issues can start, some of the underlying issues can start getting addressed. So it was just maybe a way of
I'm sorry, we can't hear you very clearly. Hello, Mr. Chege. Okay. Okay, so basically what I got is like encouraging parents to have more candid conversations with their children on the above matters. So let's move on to Dr. Edith on the same. What do you think lacks in the community in terms of information, and what do you think needs to be emphasized to them?
I think that for most of our African nations, we are transitioning between our traditional beliefs, and now we mixed in foreign religions. Most of them are not ours, and now we are mixing in science. So there's a lot of confusion between these three issues. So a little bit of science, a little bit of myths that have been passed on from our grandparents. And then religion comes and confuses the whole scenario. So I think parents need to understand, or we need some education. Most of our parents didn't go to school like we have gone. And so they have basic education, just enough to confuse them completely with religion and tradition. So I don't know if it's kind of like a done deal with our parents, changing them is going to be really difficult. But from at least now I'm like your parent from my generation. I think if we were able to understand things, we understand subjects like maths very well. We understand subjects like geography very well. But now when it comes to science and how things work, what sex is, how pregnancy comes, what you can do to prevent a pregnancy, you realize even a doctor does not want an adolescent to have contraception because of religious issues. Now you mix religion to a science that is very clear, or a traditional issue that girls are not supposed to have sex. You get confused. So why did you go to school if you still carry on these other beliefs that are not scientific? So we need a lot of education so that things are clear. And of course, that will not happen like instantly. It's going to be a lot of work to do for people to understand the science in SRH among adolescents and in GBV. Apart from education, I think we need is it avenues or places where we can empower the girl child, and then where we can empower the boy child. The boy child is completely forgotten, and yet they have to get married to these girls. And so that creates a scenario of a lot of war, because the boy has nobody mentoring him. And so he's hearing a lot from the media and from his fellow boys, and not understanding what an empowered woman can do or what it means. And so we need to empower both, so that when they meet and they are now in a relationship, there's an understanding from both sides. When the girl is empowered and the boy is not, the girl may not get married. They may look at the boys as can I say narcissistic or toxic, and yet the boys still have their traditional beliefs. So we need to handle both in a way that is balanced. And I think also we need to change the education curriculum to be in keeping with the times, so that we are not just educating people on things like science, maths, and we are forgetting life skills. So I think our education system should be able to be in tandem with what it is that we need right now. For instance, when you go to a class and you're told the roles of the boy are to go hunting or fishing, how many people now are hunting or fishing or something? So the boys grow up not knowing what is their role. And what is the role of the girls? See, if the girls are told your role is to fetch water or firewood, who does that now? So we need to be in keeping with the times, so that we are able to live in harmony with each gender. And I think the other thing that is lacking, which has come up earlier, is the resources to do these things. So as students, if people have some passion to do these things, you can always start like a small NGO. And sometimes there are funds that are called out for youth. Some of us wish we were born again so that we could apply again. So the youth need to watch out for this call for funds that are available, and so that they utilize those funds. And if they're not able to make the applications because they don't have the writing skills or the financial skills to manage or whatever, they should be able to seek out, so that they can get help to access some of these funds that they can then use to support these communities. I could say a lot, but let me stop there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edith, for enlightening us on that. So, Mr. Daniel, could you kindly tell us what you think lacks in the community and in terms of information, and what needs to be emphasized to them?
Thank you so much. I think what lacks in most communities is we've streamlined and constricted the definition of gender-based violence to a man beating a woman. But like Dr. Edith just said, it also has to do with the mindset we give the female child. My mother, she's not a medical practitioner anyway, but she keeps telling us that gender-based violence even starts from the moment that they run in African setting, we don't usually do scans to find out the sex of the child. So it's in previous time, it starts from the point where they deliver the child and you see it's a baby girl. In modern times now, it starts from the point when you do the ultrasound scan and you can see that the phallus is turning into the morphology of that of a lady, remaining as the morphology of that of a lady. So you see this, the gender ostracism already starts from the point where the child does not even have an identity yet. And it starts from as early as female mutilation. You see some people going as far as 4th degree mutilation. For those who know what that is, it is. I don't know what they aim to achieve. I once asked what was the point, and they said it prevented the lady from becoming promiscuous. And then I asked how. And while we are here thinking, oh, we learned the proper scientific use of the human body when science came, no, our forefathers knew. And my auntie told me, oh, it will stop her from feeling the pleasures of a man. That was the term she used. Because, it starts from cutting off the clitoris to clitoris and the hood to clitoris, hood, and the whole labia, and just leaving that place smooth. Some people even go as far as closing some section of the vulva. So that is, I feel that's even the worst form of gender-based violence. Because even, oh my God, that is her family even going all gender violent on that female child. Then to the fact that most African men feel sad when they don't have a male child, and they are not even able to hide this biased perspective from their daughters. And they keep saying, oh my God, if I had a child, oh my God, who will carry my name? Oh my God, will I inherit, send my business? So as if the daughters are goats, as if they can't take over the business. Another thing that is missing in our community is the fact that we've already associated some certain roles with men. If a man and a wife quarrel, you beg the man to forgive the wife, and you tell the wife, you to stop being stubborn now. We've already assumed that the wife caused the issue. As if men, we don't have drunkards. As if we don't have fornicators that, honey, where are you coming back from? And then they slap the man. The community, the society is biased. Most family members are already biased as to what they consider the right of a woman and right of a man. Some people even feel it too painful to undergo the Christian and Muslim, the circumcision that most factions of Orthodox religiosity undergoes. Some people consider it too painful for the man. But you find out in such same communities, they are still going serious mutilation of the female. I feel where we have made a big mistake is not even making any effort to change the status quo in our community. I agree that we're bringing a lot of white men ideology to meet culture merged with religion in Africa. But if we're able to help them see the light, we can stick with it. We should know that when we're talking to them about gender-based violence, we're not saying, man, stop beating your wife. That's part of it. That's just a very, very little fraction of it. Please stop segregating women. They are not animals. They are human beings. Stop female genital mutilation. It has oh my God, it's not even meant to be done. Let me not even talk of the complications. It's not meant to be done. We should also give women same opportunities. I was reading the latest bill that President Kenyatta was about passing in Kenya, the BBI bill, and he wanted to make some political seats specifically for women. And just like BDN was saying on TV 47 News, that shouldn't be the case. I was watching his interview and I'm like, that's a man right there, man. Women should be given the same opportunities to battle the same way men are given the same opportunities. And if you read about the strongest female soldier in the US, she does 1,000 press-ups in 10 minutes or in an hour? And I'm like, how many men can do that? The only reason they didn't allow her into the SEAL Team 6 was because she was a female. And you see, there again, they are segregating the whole female movement. So the society needs to change its ways. And we need to tell people where the root of their problem is. So that you, a mother telling your son-in-law to stop beating your daughter, you should remember that you circumcised that girl when she totally didn't need it. You taught that girl to be the servant in the house when you were meant to teach her to be a strong wife, an independent wife, and a wife that will be able to support her husband and her children if any calamity unfortunately happened. You taught her to bow and lick the feet of a drunkard when we were meant to teach her to be able to stand tall and teach her children, no, this is not what's meant to be done. You people should not be drunkards. You taught her to always forgive her husband and keep silent when you were meant to teach her children to stand tall and not allow her husband fornicate and bring women to the house and still allow the man beat them up. My uncle sends his daughters to karate school. In fact, that was why my father sent us to combat school. But most parents don't even see that there is a need to also allow their daughters experience the strengths in life. So I feel the whole issue starts from family and society. Right now, we are treating, we are not preventing. So that's where the problem is. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel Otabo, for that. Well, I think we've seen a lot of, we know that these issues are there, but we also see that people are very, they do not want to change their thinking on issues to do with society and say gender roles or mutilation and what culture, how culture makes the society look at see women, and how do you think we as students can take that message to the community effectively?
We as students, primarily, we're at a point where before we've graduated, our community has started calling us doctor, doctor, doctor. I don't know if it happens in Kenya, but when they hear you're in medical school and you go to the building, they're like, they'll be calling my mother mama doctor, they'll be calling my father papa doctor. So and by the time we now really become the doctors, we both know we wouldn't have time for the community. But we should remember that they started respecting us when they heard we made it to medical school. We can use that to our advantage. We can go for community outreaches and not majorly outreaches to the House of Parliament and senators and governors and presidents that are going to give us 1 or 2 brown envelopes. We should go to where the message matters. Our community members respect us. I'm from a tribe in Nigeria known as Idoma. I shouldn't always drag myself to the Hausa tribe where I'm an alien, where I'm a stranger, when I know that there are logs of wood in the eyes of the Idoma men. So I can gather my tribesmen, call them together and tell them, see, let's go for an outreach in our own community. Who are the Muslims amongst us? Oh, this faction is Muslim. Oh, the Muslims, please, you will lead the outreach to the Muslim region of our tribe. The Christians, you will lead the outreach to the Christian region of our tribe. Someone will say this segregation, religiosity, but no, we know things that work. A Muslim would rather listen to a Muslim tell him a Christian is not evil than listen to a Christian say he's not evil, and vice versa. So we know this. So why don't we come together as medical students and take advantage of this respect that we know our community currently has for us, and do it effectively while keeping the message simple and short. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daniel, for that. So we have come to the end of our discussion, and I'd like to take a few questions. If anyone has a question, kindly either type it in the chat box, or you can unmute and ask your question directly to any of the trainers, facilitators. So is there any question? Mr. Chege made a note in the chat box that messaging for gender-based violence and SRHR should encompass variety and use of media mix, radio, and champions and agents needs champions and agents at grassroots level. Thank you, Mr. Chege, for that comment. Is anyone with a question? a question, a comment, a remark? Okay, if there isn't any, then we'll move on to the closing remarks section. And I'd like if Dr. Edith could kindly just unmute and give her closing remarks.
So my closing remarks is that I suspect you guys want to do something about this. I want to wish you the best. I think it's a good cause. You have to know that it won't happen in a day. Sometimes adolescents have so much energy, and they can easily get frustrated when after a few efforts, they are not seeing the fruit. So be patient, but soldier on. You can build your career also around this. Many times, medical students think that medicine is just about treating illnesses, and they forget that there's a lot of social medicine that affects health outcomes eventually. So these are things that affect health outcomes, and your career can also be built around these social issues. So I wanted to show you something, but my video has stopped working. Let me see. It has stopped working. So anyway, fine. So have a lovely evening.
Sorry for that. So there's a suggestion from Aisha Imam. There are a lot outside that are willing to achieve something or reach out to a certain group of people, but are quiet because of certain issues. So I suggest we first start with finding out who is interested in such things. Then we talk about developing the idea together. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Aisha, for that. It was mentioned that we should find a chaperone of sorts to also go into the community. So I think this is very wise to go in with a team. And if you didn't catch the first training session, you can find it on YouTube. We discussed a lot on this, and also those discussions on when you go into the community, you find people there who you can train so that even when you leave, they can continue advocating on your behalf. Yeah. So you can always find that on the Msake YouTube. Yes. So Mr. Daniel, kindly give your closing remarks.
Thank you. Basically, my closing remark just circles around the fact that we are not clouding the fact that a lot of men too undergo gender-based violence, but this is usually in a localized setting of paternal expectations, if I can put it like that. The society expects the men to be one thing and the men's capabilities another thing, and the men are abused in some relationships. But we're looking at the vulnerable group now all over the world. The vulnerable group are women and children. And I think we should treat these people right, knowing that these people holds the key to possibly the existence of the tomorrow. Thank you.
And So there's a comment from Enoch in the chat box, which is, sorry, I have an issue with having or expected to do everything as a student, mostly alone, all the while not having the finances, time, and or right words to express ideas into actionable plans. How can you hope to empower, encourage, or motivate such a David to topple the Goliath of these issues? Um,
I'm already coming in.
oh,
Okay. There are various NGOs in Africa, and something I learned from my few time with Respect in Kenya is that there are a lot of people willing to give money for a lot of results. You can't, and there's something they say, teamwork makes the dream work. So most of these NGOs sponsor you when you have a team, and not just a team that had evidence of a possible successful work. So you see Respect being supported by the reproductive health team from Denmark. They even travel from time to time and every. You see those who are involved in tuberculosis being sponsored by Stop TB Partnership Kenya. In fact, the first time I heard about Stop TB Partnership was when I was in Kenya. So I was first a mentee member of Stop TB Partnership Kenya, even before I became a member of that in Nigeria. And you see, they sponsor a lot of events. So you have such an agenda. You join a student network or you form a student network with a specific goal and not an Oliver Twist widespread goal. And then with that streamlined goal, you draw out a plan that looks feasible and you submit it to these NGOs. They might not sponsor 100% what you expect, but from the little they give you and the results you achieve initially, you'll be surprised that you'll become a permanent member of their sponsorship list. A good example of this is Respect. I heard Respect started in 2015 or was it 2018? However, in I think it's 2018, I can't remember in precise. However, they've been able to reach about 8,000 different youths and adolescents and teenagers and educate them. And I was watching when the Respect story, and I was like, wow. And so I think every NGO will be proud of that. And the NGO sponsoring them, by the time they're writing back to their main financiers that this is what we used our money for, in Kenya, we're able to, don't say Respect. They'll say in Kenya, we're able to reach out to 8,000 African children. That's how they that's how they make it sound. But you see, the work is being done by, and because they want such good results, they'll keep financing. So I feel you join a team or you make a team, you have a streamlined goal, you get a feasible plan that you feel the common man can achieve, then you submit it, and then we cross our fingers and you would see it to come true. You're not in Nigeria where you really need to know somebody. I know you might need to know somebody, but in Nigeria, like, it's part of your resume. You have to know somebody to get something. Like, you even add it in your CV. At the bottom, you just write, I'm the cousin of, I'm the son of, I'm the neighbor of Brigadier General, and you get the employment. But we can actually make it work as students. It's not easy. It's actually not easy. I'm speaking from experience, but yes, we can make it work. And yes, we are superhumans. If you want to make a difference, you have to be extra. We are superhumans.
Mr. Daniel, for that. Dr. Edith, would you like to also give your opinion on that question?
Sorry, the comment was that what they can do as students.
Yes.
I think you guys have a lot of IT advantage over older people, or being on the net a lot, or accessing e-information more than older people. So there are lots of opportunities for young people if you go to the internet with the right purpose. If you go there to watch TikTok and do Facebook and abuse the president, then you'll be wasting your time on that internet. But if you go there to achieve an objective, look at grants that are available for youth, look at donations that are available, then you can use your time on the internet very wisely and apply for some of those opportunities. A lot of them need collaborations, as has been said. So you need to also get a proper team who you are working with, people with similar vision. So one of you might be good with ideas, the other one might be good with writing, the other one might be good with talking to some mentor or community entry. So you get people, not just friends who are with you, but based on skill and interest also, so that you have a team that meets the skills that are required for it. So once you have that team, then you make the application. So if you need some mentors, because many times you do, because you have the energy but not the experience, identify who you want to work with as a mentor. You might want to identify like many times the organizations also want to know if you have financial skills. Then get the NGOs around that can train you on managing funds or something. So I think many times youth are very good with complaining, but not very good with doing as in pushing it to the end. And it's frustrating. So you have to be sure that it's a path you want to take. Once you're sure that it's a path you want to take, you go. And it's not, sometimes we do these things to earn money. Even if you get a grant, usually it's not your money. You can't decide, oh, let me make my hair with this money, or let me buy myself some nice shoes I saw. So it's not your money. It's a grant for a specific purpose. So it's not an issue of get rich. As a youth, I think your aim should not be money. The money will come as you build your experience and as you build your name. But if the agenda is to get rich quick, then you'll be very disappointed, because many times that money is seriously monitored and you cannot do anything beyond what you said you do with it. So just get your energies in the right direction and get your skills in the right direction, and I think it will be well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edith, for that. So if Mr. Chege seems to have left the meeting, so if I'll give this opportunity for anyone in the audience to give a remark, if they want to. Just unmute your mic and give your remark, your comment or suggestion, whatever. Okay, so I'll assume that there is also Al-Sadiq. Do you have
Hello?
something to say? Yes, kindly go on.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I want to make a comment about the community house is working in bad community to change the more attitude to against health problem. So we are still in this stage. We need it most effective way. As I mentioned before, we have no actionable because of lack of some requires like money or something like that. So the most effective way we are students to affect the community is health education. Now, I have seen a lot of villages and areas that they have stakeholders who are very rich, but they didn't participate in of lack of health education, the importance of the issue, and how this solves this problem. So I think we are still needed to constitute the community, and so
Sorry, Al-Sadiq, we can't get you very clearly.
hello.
We can't hear you very clearly. Please bring your mic closer.
I'm breaking or what?
We can hear you clearly now.
What I want to say that we are still needed to reach the community, and And but I have seen a lot of holders who have who are very rich, but they didn't participate in health sector. And also, they don't know the importance of the issue. So if you know importance of the issue, you can solve, you can participate. The only thing that you need is health education, right? I mean.
Thank you so much for that, Al-Sadiq. If there's no other remark, I think we can end the discussion there. So thank you, Dr. Edith and Mr. John Chege and Mr. Daniel Otabo in absentia for coming and enlightening us on these topics. We really appreciate it, and I'm pretty sure that the information that you've given here will be put to good use and will help in changing the community in one way or another. So yeah, I think also we're going to have the next session next week Saturday at 4 p.m. So keep an eye out for the posters. I'm sorry this one came out late, but we'll try next time to have it on earlier. So yeah, I hope you guys will be able to join it as well. But thank you all for coming and attending this one, for taking an hour and per half-ish to come and join us today. And I really hope to see you again. Thank you.